Well, welcome in everybody to the Blue Demon Room podcast. We're kicking off season 2 today. We're really excited. We've got a big room with us here today. My new co-host, Jenna Duddleston, who is a DePaul alum and more importantly, one of my great friends. So Jenna, thank you for helping me out this season. I'm so excited to have you on board.
Thanks for having me, honey. Can't wait.
Yeah, you're back at DePaul.
I know.
Good, right?
It feels nice to be back here. I love this campus so much, and it feels right.
Good. Well, last but certainly not least, we are introducing today the DePaul women's volleyball coach, Marie Zidek. Coach, thank you for coming on. We can talk about your accolades all day. I want to read some of them off really quick before you even say hello. Not only are you the women's volleyball coach here, you're also the NCAA Division I women's representative on the American Volleyball Coaches Association Board of Directors. And most recently, you were the head coach of the USA Volleyball U23 women's national team, who won gold in Mexico. Coach Zidek, thank you for coming on the Blue Demon Room podcast and being our first guest of the new season.
Thanks, and shout out to Jenna, also a fellow Southsider.
That's right.
Yes, we find Southsiders find each other no matter where we go in life, and then we talk about it for the entire time we're with each other. So, fair warning to everyone.
Yeah, I'm not even necessary anymore. They can just talk.
Yes, you are. Don't say that.
No, I'm kidding. We're also going to have our producer Sonia, who is going to be helping us out on the mic and just kind of helping us through some things. We are going to rely on her because fact checking is key. And
yes.
Also, she has a great student perspective as a DePaul student. So we're excited to have our whole team on board. But we'll get into the podcast today. Coach, we just want to talk to you first about how was Mexico and tell us about that experience.
Man, where to start? So one of the things that I talked to the team that I had about was trust the timing of your life. And the opportunity to lead came at the time that I was ready for it. Number 2, I needed it. About 3 years ago, and I don't know how much you follow the records, but 2022, we had tremendous momentum building. 2019, 2020, 2021, we were finishing here at DePaul with a really significant win-loss. We were taking big steps forward. In 2022, we went 10-20, and I crashed and burned as a leader. And I really vowed at that point in time, I knew the volleyball really well. I knew how to build a program really well, but I did not know how to lead. And I took a step back and I doubled down on all of the different leadership opportunities that were coming my way. And I said, I just need to get in the room with people that are leaders and a lot smarter than I am and who are doing this at a lot higher of a level, or else I'm not going to continue to find success. And so the opportunity with the AVCA came up to take over as the D1 president, which put me in the room with a board of directors that were used to leading big organizations and used to leading people over long periods of time to new heights. I doubled down on my involvement with USA Volleyball that I had been working with for over a decade. I had always practiced coaching growing up. My mom's a coach, an All-American. I always say I can be an All-American drill facilitator. She was a lot better player than I was, but my aunt was an All-American as well. So, it was one of those things where I had to really step back in 2022 and go, hey, I have to find more ways to take on more responsibility as a leader because I know the X's and O's of volleyball. But how can I put people in position to be successful in using that knowledge and feel empowered so when they're on the court, they feel like they can do it? And so it was a long, deep dive down, and I had been really just doing whatever I could. And so with USA Volleyball, Erin Virtue, who's the current head coach at Michigan, also a Chicago gal, she revamped our youth training program and our USA pipeline, so to speak. And she helped develop the NCDP, the National Training and Development Program under USA Volleyball, which is, the path to the podium. A lot of the gals and even the guys that you see every 4 years during the Olympics, there's a path to that. We're the only country in the world, volleyball-wise, that blends sport and education. We're the only country in the world with an NCAA. And we have 340-ish Division I schools that fully fund women's volleyball in D2, D3, and NAIA, and there's a ton more at those levels. And so the unique thing about that system is we very rarely had a chance to get our top 30 to 60 to 70 athletes per birth year together to compete. And that's what everybody else around the world does. So we have the most women that play volleyball right now, I think the current high school numbers are right around 500,000 youth girls that play volleyball. That balloons when you include club to probably closer to 750 to 800,000 girls. There's no other country around the world that has that, but every other country around the world has the top 30 to 40 athletes per birth year playing together year round, all the time.
That math isn't mathing then.
Right. So when we go to these international tournaments, it had been taking us a little bit to get used to what playing a 2-week tournament's like, and going overseas and playing under different rules in different environments. And so when Aaron worked with Karch, who was our former women's national team coach, now he's over on the men's side. You probably have heard of him, Karch Karai. He was a little bit good at volleyball. I joke for a fact. Yeah, he was okay. So she kind of revamped that, and I had taken a leadership role at that time with the U17 age group. And so I had the top 60 to 90, 2022, 2023, and 2024. I was training, what was earmarked as the top 60 to 90 youth girls volleyball players. We would train together 3 times of the year. And 3 pockets of the year, and I really was enjoying, because there's a level of leadership. I'm around all these different coaches, and our responsibility is to prepare those athletes for eventual path to the podium type track. And so, it was a really unique responsibility to be around just people who were the best at their craft, always on, and just some really dynamic leaders that also happen to be some of the best people to ever play our sport. And I got the call last year when I was recruiting and I thought, I was like, are you serious? And Chris Berzins, he called me and said, hey, would you want to lead? There's an opening at the U23 age group national team level. Would you want to lead? And so we have U17, U19, U21, U23. That's kind of that path to the podium of the women that you're going to see in LA 28. And I was recruiting at the time. I think I was in Vegas, and I get the call, and I said, yes, but I have to call my wife first. So but I was like, yes, I'm in, but wait a minute, I have a family. And so the opportunity to lead was something I started 3 years ago in 2022, where I felt like as a leader I failed. And so just over the 3 years, and I had no idea that the opportunity was going to come. You serve at the pleasure. People say that for the president in USA Volleyball. You serve at the pleasure, and so the opportunity came. So how was it? I said yes, and then after that, it just kept getting better and better and better and better. And I received a call. Okay, who's going to be your staff, right? I was like, okay, well, they pretty much tell you, who your staff's going to be, and I said, we're going to give you Kayla Banworth and Danielle Scott-Aruda. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? 2 Olympians.
Yeah,
and I was 12 years old watching Danielle Scott-Aruda in 1996 in her first Olympics. And she went on to compete in 5 Olympics. And there's only 6 people on planet Earth that have competed in 5 or more Olympics, and she's one of them. And this was going to be my assistant. And I was like, this is crazy. I need to call my mom and pinch myself right now, because I've just been in volleyball my whole life, and I'm as average as they come, and just to get surrounded by these people that are former Olympians, and then having a chance. It was a really unique opportunity, because the U23 age group is the oldest age group before you get to senior national team. And so it was a unique opportunity to put 2 Olympians in front of those young women who had aspirations that they had, and the path that they walked down. And then, oh, by the way, I got to go try to win a 2-week tournament and do all these things. And so it was a unique opportunity to lead at a time when volleyball in this country is exploding. Yeah. At the college level, I was at a couple league offices a couple weeks ago, and just looking at the amount of volleyball and media and things going in. So it's just the trust the timing of your life, and it was, and then you got to go to Mexico. So I had we brought 17 players to Anaheim, which is our national team gym, to train, and then I had to cut 5 people because NORCECA only allows 12 to go on roster. And so we had built this amazing family of girls over a week, and then part of the burdens of responsibility was, telling 5 of them that they weren't going to come, and in effect, ending at least right now, what their dream was to get to put on the USA jersey and go represent the country in an international competition. And that was really difficult because, these are people, like anybody, you pour your heart and soul into it. Sure. And certainly if we could have taken all 17, we would have. But, that's part of the job. And so we took 12. And then we went and flew to Mexico, and then we had pool play. When you win pool, you do get a day off. If you don't win pool, you play 6 matches over 6 days straight. So there was a unique caveat to winning pool. Part of the directive of this job was to get developmental experience with all 12 players as well. Internationally, you only have 6 subs, so you have to be very strategic about how you provide opportunity for people. And so we did a really good job of that. Everybody had match responsibility. Everybody got a chance to represent USA Volleyball. Everyone got tested. And then we had a chance to play Mexico in the semifinal, which, anytime you leave this country and you go around the world, soccer and volleyball are the 2 most popular sports. Soccer is the most popular sport, the most watched, the most played, and volleyball second. And so you end up going, when you leave this country, just because many countries, nobody else has an NFL, an NBA, an MLB, an NHL, an MLS, at the level that we have here. They are doubling down on volleyball and soccer. And so, we went overseas and we went down to Mexico. We played in a 3,000 seat arena. I'm pretty sure there were like 4,500 people in there for that match. And just so passionate, and the environment was fantastic. They actually moved the match time to nationally televise it on linear. And so my first match as a head coach was in Mexico, wearing the USA flag, which was kind of cool.
So cool.
From a media perspective, just to have that level of responsibility. And then it went 5, which I knew it was going to. The Mexican U23 team played an unbelievable game, just with game intelligence. We had a little bit more athletic talent, but they played the game a lot better. And so it went the distance, and we ended up winning, and then ended up being our friendly foes up north, Canada, in the final. But just the uniqueness of all of it, of having 2 Olympians that really have paved a way for our young women, and to be, responsible to hold the experience of these young women, and to orchestrate an experience that, number one, we're one of the strongest volleyball countries in the world right now. A lot of eyes on us. Obviously, whenever you're wearing USA, you have a lot of eyes on you, no matter what you're doing overseas. So there was such an elevated level of responsibility, and the group just handled it brilliantly, and just represented the sport with respect and responsibility, and represented the flag with respect and responsibility. It was also, for many of our U23 women, it was their first all-female staff that they've ever had in their coaching career. And a lot of them, and we didn't throw that in front of them. I mean, we thought it was cool. We're like, girl power. I was like, I'm around Olympians. I feel immediately 100% cooler. But a lot of them said, we just have never experienced an all-female staff before, and we're really looking forward to it, because for them, it allowed them a chance to connect and lift one another up, in addition to dominating.
There's a different energy level with it.
It's a more complementary energy, right? It's the sharpness, and there's a sharpness to sport. Is about dominating your opponent, and competing. And these are some of the best athletes in college right now, and I had a lot of first-year professional athletes as well. But there was this allowance of connectivity, and we really painted the picture of, we need all 17, we need all 12. To be at their max. And the value of this group was that everybody brought a unique strength. And so it wasn't necessarily about me beating you out. It was, how could I be my best right now? And if I'm not at my best, I can count on my teammate to not expose me and help me. And there was just a collaborative piece. And it really ended up building from start to finish. I mean, 2 weeks, by the end of the 2 weeks, I'm like, I don't even know where I am. I mean, I don't even feel like I'm in planet Earth, because you're just 100% focused on the mission, and you're 100% focused on the people around you. And the group really bonded and grew in a way that I feel like that's a big reason why we were able to overcome the semifinal against Mexico, when 400,000, dear Lord, 4,000 people are cheering against you. and you're having to be protect yourself and drop the curtain on your side of the net. And so just though there were a lot of narratives behind the gold medal, and that allowed us to even get it in the first place.
For sure. And I think too, when you are playing with people that you genuinely like I know that sounds really silly, but like I've been on many teams where you respect your teammates, but you don't maybe always get along with them. But when you really have a friendship, you want to go to battle and you don't mind being in the trenches with them, so you fight harder,
Yep.
Coach, you said something that I thought was really interesting, and I was hoping I could ask you about it. You said 2022, you were 10-20, is that correct?
Yeah, a record here at DePaul.
Okay, so I have this belief that winning hides a lot of ugly, but losing highlights it all. So I'm guessing you probably learned more in that losing season. What did you feel were the biggest lessons you learned that kind of helped turn this around to make you be the leader that you are now?
Well, I just think that exactly, the fact that I failed. I failed as a leader of getting the group to work together. And I'm one of the best, if not the best, scouters in the country. I trust our training gym. I trust what we're doing training, and I trust how I can dissect an opponent. So I had to take a hard look in the mirror and go, so then why didn't this work? And hence this 3-year deep dive now, and I'm about to head into the next the next level of leadership as the NCAA shifts and sports become a little bit federated in the model, and volleyball starts to develop its own oversight committee, for example. But it was just a hard look in the mirror that I need to fix a lot of things that I was doing in how I was managing people, because for me, tasks has never been the issue. I have the roadmap. I know exactly what it takes to build a championship program. I've been a part of a lot of programs. I've worked in 5 different schools and 5 different leagues around the country. And so I feel uniquely capable. And it was just the fact that we had the talent on paper, and we didn't produce the results. And I had to really take a hard look at how was I managing people. And, for me, I've always been a hard worker. I'm from the south side of Chicago. It's as blue collar as it comes, and there's a lot of respect and responsibility in working hard, and in that being a top 3 characteristic. And when you say, when you meet a south sider, they're tough,
there's a grit.
There's a grit. One of my good friends is Kacy
I just stand behind her all the time.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, that's good.
You handle it.
I will handle it, but I would never put you in a position where we would be in that situation. But if we are, just get behind me.
I don't know. I'm like, you can't be my friend if I don't trust you if we get in a street fight,
Fair,
or
correct.
a bar fight.
You mentioned, though, Katie Schumacher.
Yeah. So Kacy Schumacher, right? So she just won. She was the first female to ever win a national championship for volleyball. So another Southsider.
Yep.
We actually grew up coaching together. She's a little bit older than me, so she played at Penn State. I was still going through high school. But then when we both started our coaching career, we were working at Payless Courts, which you've probably heard of. But we were coaching summer camps at Payless Courts, learning how to coach from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. every day over the summer, and it was her and I running camps and clinics the whole time. And obviously, she has recently just gone through her own battle with cancer, and been a survivor, and won a natty while doing that. I mean, we're tough, right? Yeah. She's probably the tip of the spear. And so, I have never shied away from the work. And sometimes when, and then you go through your professional career and you're assisting a lot. This will be my 8th year as a head coach. I still spent 11 years as an assistant. And I love that role because it was like, give me all the work. I'll be the engine in the car. You just sit and you steer the wheel, for whatever head coach I've worked for. And I've worked for a lot of different head coaches with a lot of different styles. But the one thing that being assistant does not prepare you for is managing people. Because you don't have that responsibility when you're assisting. You don't have the responsibility of managing people in the bigger picture. You're responsible for doing all the work, and there are days, when I was an assistant here at DePaul, I slept in that assistant office probably 3 nights a week, because the amount of work, on a 3-person staff and we're trying to operate at a big girl sport level,
Right.
the amount of work that I was willing to take on was very high. But what it doesn't train you for is how to manage people, and you have to find your own voice. You have to find your own leadership voice in that. And so after 2022, I was like, I need to lead more. Like, I need more practice leading. And so I got super involved with our professional coaches organization, which just does a phenomenal job of, it is the definition of professional development. There's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of leadership opportunity in organizations like that. And so the AVCA has been so gracious in providing those opportunities for everybody, head coaches and assistants. I tried to just put anything I could was to practice leading. And so I asked, USA Volleyball again. I was like, hey, if there's any opportunities to run these trainings, like, I am all in. You can count on me. And they were like, okay, we'll give you a chance. And so I've been, kind of, long story short, I've been the USA lead for that U17 training group for a long time, and then got the call to the U23 age national team, which there's only, 3 of them right now competing internationally. So we told each other, like myself, Kayla, and Danielle, when we both kind of got put together, we go, let's prove them right.
Yeah.
Let's prove them right that you can send 3 women overseas in an international competition, and we can lead a group of women to be highly successful.
Coach, you mentioned the ABCA in 2022 and those experiences, but was there a moment from your past that you knew you wanted to be a coach, like, and it clicked for you, or like, this is going to be my future?
Well, I think everybody else knew that because my mom had been coaching for 40 years. My mom went to college. She was one of the first recipients of a Title IX scholarship to go play, and played from 1978 to 1981. And then my aunt played at University of Central Florida from 81 to 83 or 84, I think. And after my mother got done playing, for her, she came back and took over the volleyball club that she played for, which was the first volleyball club in the city of Chicago, Windy City Volleyball Club, that longtime coach John Chorjanik ran out of Queen of Martyrs High School down on the south side. And it was really one of the first opportunities that girls had to play organized club sports. And what they had been doing was playing in the adult leagues, which the adult leagues were like your pro leagues. And those were, so you had 14-year-olds playing with, 25, 30-year-olds.
Well, I mean, that's also a different, going back to the grit, like, okay, you want to play this grown game, you're going to play against grown women, and you're going to figure it out. And if you get hit in the face, sorry, but like, wipe it off and move on.
I mean, where the Chicago Yacht Club is now, it used to be volleyball courts.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of volleyball history in the city, and it's one of the birthplaces of volleyball. It's like Chicago and Southern California.
I don't think people realize how rich volleyball is in the Chicagoland area.
Well, that's good, because that
Yes.
means it's grown at a level that a lot of people around the country are playing it.
Yeah.
But, I always say, like, Mary Wise, longtime Florida head coach, Chicago gal. Russ Rose, longtime Penn Stater, Chicago guy. Terry Liskevich, former national team coach who coached at Oregon State, Chicago, Ukrainian Village, right? Like, so a lot of coaches, came out of Chicago. A lot of coaches, a lot of educators, a lot of teachers came out of Chicago. And so to go back to your original question, everyone else was like, oh yeah, of course you're doing this. But at the time, I was also studying sport physiology, and I was very passionate about the ACL problem in women's sports and solving that. And so when I went to college, I went to Northern Illinois, very, very good physical education program, churns out a ton of teachers and sports physiologists. And then I went overseas and studied as a sport physiologist in Finland. And then I came back and went to Oregon State for sports medicine. And so when I got done with all of those experiences, I did have quite a bit of opportunity to start my career as a sport physiologist. I had access when I was in Finland to some of the top athletes in the world. For example, this is kind of a fun fact, but
Love fun facts, fire away.
in 2005, I helped design, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Formula One, Lewis Hamilton.
Yes. Oh my God, where's this going? I'm so excited.
So Lewis Hamilton was a hot, young, up-and-coming driver at the time, and he wasn't on any performance development plan. And you guys know back in around that time, drivers started really focusing on their fitness. And so I got a chance to meet him. I was 23. He was young. He was like,
he wasn't Lewis Hamilton
Yeah.
yet.
he was, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
Super polite guy, by the way.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I'm from the South Side Chicago. I don't know anything about Formula One.
No.
Like, I grew up in the 80s. Like, it was like NASCAR and then like, whatever. But, he walked in and he was like, and I worked with his team to help him develop one of his first sport performance plans. And so that was like a career path that it was opening for me.
Yeah.
And I worked with, just really like top level athletes around the world. And then I came home and I got a job at Oregon State as a GA because you need to continue. I wanted to get my master's in sports physiology. And at the time it was between University of Utah and Oregon State. And at Oregon State, Terry Liskevich, who was our, who had started the men's program at Ohio State, then went to Pacific when University of Pacific was, one of the top, athletic departments in the country. There were football, volleyball was winning natties. So UOP, and then went to national team in the late 80s, early 90s. Won bronze in 92 with our women, and then actually served as the one of the volunteer coordinators for the 96 Olympics. So he was coaching at Oregon State. He had taken a break. He had gotten the head coaching job. And I remember, I got accepted to both programs, but Oregon State was going to allow me to work for the volleyball program. And I was coaching club at the time because I was in transition. I moved back from Finland, and I was coaching club in Chicago. And he goes, okay, Marie, like, I'm going to come watch you run one of your practices. And I had 17 girls. And I remember sitting him down, and I was 23 and 70, so we're a little close in age. And I sat him down, and I go, don't screw this up for me. Like, that we have our national team coming to watch our practice. Please, can everyone just like pass the ball in the net and look like we know what we're doing?
Be on your best behavior.
Be on your best behavior,
please.
And they were like pumped. They were like, yeah, we got you, coach. So Terry came and watched one of my practices, and then I ended up working for him for 3 years in what was then the Pac-10. And the Pac-10 in the 2000s
was
an absolute bloodbath.
Yeah.
I would argue, and this is going to be, maybe this will get you guys a couple sound bites.
I think I know where you're going with this, but I want to hear.
It was I think the generation, the decade of the best college volleyball ever. Even I would put that decade against the current big, which
Those
I know
might be
is
fighting words.
They are, but it's all about the it's all about the volley and the fun. But I mean, it was insane. I mean, you had Stanford, USC, Cal, Oregon. Everybody was top 8.
Yeah.
And so it was a really unique time to go there. And so when those 3 years were over, I had an opportunity. I had to graduate. At some point, you have to graduate, I guess. I had an opportunity to go work as a researcher in North Carolina at the time, which was one of the world leaders in injury prevention for ACL. And I was still that ACL, that female ACL thing still plagues me, So I was really, interested in trying to solve that. Working as a professor, I could have also gone that route and gone the tenured route and been, more of an in the lab researcher, and then coaching. Russ Rose, Terry and Russ are old Chicago buddies, obviously, and. Terry called Russ, and the head coach here at the time was Nadia Edwards, who won a natty at Penn State for Russ, and then had been coaching at Ohio State, got the head job here, was going to be her first year, and Terry said, hey, I have the perfect worker bee for you. This girl will make sure that, the work gets done. So as, Nadia's walking into DePaul as a head coach and trying to get the program going, that the work's being done in the background. And so I went the coaching route.
Nice. I'm just curious, what did you learn about the ACLs for the women's side? Because I remember there was a year probably where every person I knew tore their ACL on the women's side. So what did you learn from that, and what is the prevention, or is there prevention?
And this is something that's starting now as well, is what I learned was that no research was really being done.
No, you mean they didn't do any research on women's health? They would never do such a thing.
Yeah, so
never.
Women's health, nutrition, exercise programming. I mean, I just turned 41 this year, so even just different hormones at different points of your life. especially, in the past, no money or resources or people were really diving into it because, I always look at things top down. When you have an NFL, of course they're going to do research on concussions. When you have the NBA, of course they're going to do research on microdosing with lifting because the season's so long and we have to figure out how do we keep our guys in shape. When you have an MLB or an NHL and they're playing what do they play? 160.
MLB's 162.
162, right?
Yeah.
Whatever the NHL is up there.
Yeah, long seasons.
Yeah, so of course there's going to be research because there's so much money involved.
Yeah.
And you have to keep your best athletes, your LeBron James of the world, you have to keep them healthy because those are people selling tickets and those are people selling merchandise. And so there's a whole industry and an ecosystem that goes into, well, how do we keep Tom Brady healthy until 69 years old or 70 years old?
Because they would.
The guy,
Yeah.
he's a walking, look at what Caitlin Clark's doing for the WNBA.
Yeah.
She's a walking economy. And so when you have that happening at the pro levels, of course you're going to have research going into, the WNBA has been around a while, but it's just now starting to put the butts in seats and to grab momentum. It's what men's sports were back in the early 1900s. We're just 30 or 40 years behind for things out of our control, just lack of opportunity. And so the biggest starting point is everyone's like, well, why can't we figure this out? And it's like, well, no one's really done any research about everything. And no one's really accepting the fact that when women go through their sport phases, we have cycles.
Yeah.
We have hormones, we have cycles where we're more injury prone at certain times of the month than others. We're more, and maybe we should think about, attenuating to those things. Just like we're building 5,000 concussion helmets right now for football players to protect their brains because CTE is a real thing and concussions are a real thing. And it's just starting to be accepted that maybe there's a different way we need to train, not because we're better or worse, but because different genders have different needs biologically.
Sure.
And so, you're starting to see nutrition and money going into nutrition studies and money going in, like Cleveland Clinic has always been the tip of the spear. They've been, the KIPP program was something that came out in the 90s, early 2000s for soccer, basketball, and volleyball. And basically it looked at, hey, women do need a little bit more change of direction work. They need a little bit more core work just because muscle mass and it's just different.
Yeah.
It's different. We're built to carry humans to term. Men aren't built to do that. So we have, maybe higher percentages of different things in our bodies that need to just be, paid attention to. So the end goal of that is, it's nice to see some more money and some more people go into it because I think you're going to see in the next two decades, I think you're going to see things change quite a bit.
Coach, there's so much I want to get to, and you've talked about a little bit about volleyball, a little bit about family, a little bit about your past, but I think what's really interesting about you is that you don't really like to appoint captains or address anyone on your team by their year. So it's not really like sophomore, junior, senior. It's more about your decision to kind of, I remember calling one of your games, I remember you saying something about how anyone can be the leader at the right time. So I want you to expand more on that because I don't know if Jenna's heard that story too.
Yeah, so I actually can't take 100% credit for the no captains thing. The boss that I worked for previous to here, Jennifer Petrie, who's still at the University of San Diego, she was coach of the year 3 years ago now, went to the Final Four, basically had built her program up to a level where she counted on everybody for leadership, and kind of going back to that idea of we're the only country in the world that blends sport and education. And when you blend education with sport, sometimes what sport has the tendency to do, especially here in this country, is take the hierarchy from school. So freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year of school. We do it in high school and we do it in college, and place it on sport. And what it can do, the upsides of being a captain is somebody has really proven themselves. They're the example. It's basically that C is, basically so the team knows who the coach wants you to follow, right? And they do a phenomenal amount for their team, but it can sometimes on the flip side of the coin limit the capability that other players feel. And when you limit capability, you limit competency. And when you limit competency, you limit responsibility. And in team sports, you know, I have 17 players right now. I need all 17 players to feel very competent and capable, so they can feel confident, because we're trying to build a program that wins championships here. And so if I'm only appointing, you know, the 3 seniors, or, you know, the hierarchy of age, it can limit the new players coming in who, if I've done my job recruiting, should be very capable and competent. It can limit the optic or the idea of their capability and competence early, and therefore I'm only good every 4 years, because now I have to wait for those 4 people to get
Smart.
good. And oh, by the way, volleyball takes 6-on-6, and it really does take all 17. We play a 32 match season, so this idea that I'm going to ride the same 6 players and that they're not going to get sick or injured or have an off night, it's pretty naive. And so I need all 17 players to feel, and not only to feel, but be able to execute responsibility. And so that's kind of why I shy away. And I believe everybody can lead in different ways. And if I limit, you know, the C to one type of leadership, that doesn't reinforce the environment I'm trying to create, which is an environment of belonging, not an environment of fitting in. And there's a difference, you know, when you belong, like the gym, I've always felt like I've belonged. You know, it's the best version of myself. It's the, you know, you have that version of yourself that you like the most. That's the version of me that I like the most when I'm in the gym. And I want everyone to feel like they can do that, you know, with how they are, how they talk, the personality they have. And so we tend not to limit that, because you run the risk then of alienating or telling everybody you have to fit in and act like this, when really I want to see what this year's team can create. And I don't necessarily know where the ceiling of that is.
To kind of go off of that, like talking about belonging and feeling very inclusive, you've talked about how important it is to make volleyball a very inclusive space. What does that look like for you and the young women that you bring onto the court?
Yeah, so I mean, you could come to practice and probably point a couple things out. You know, we try to switch a lot. We tend not to have an A side and a B side.
Oh, that's really healthy.
We tend not to class people. We very rarely use the words freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors. I try to highlight different people's strengths. And so the value of 17 people in a team sport is hopefully all those people are bringing a different strength to the table. And we try to provide an opportunity for that strength to be exposed in a healthy way. We do talk about not exposing our teammates, and so volleyball, hey, it's the only sport in the world that your body is used as a rebounding device.
What do you mean by
ball.
what do you mean by not exposing your teammates?
So if we're playing together, Jenna, and you're setter, right? You were a
Yes.
setter. I was a setter, but I'll pretend I was a passer.
I'll be a libero in this situation, because I did play libero for a few years.
I played libero too.
Oh my God, we are the same. We are the same.
Person.
And you both wore the same color today.
We really are. We coordinated.
Sky
We had
blue.
no idea.
Yeah. So if we're on the court, you know, and maybe your first contact isn't great, you know, but I'm gonna upgrade my second contact. I'm gonna fix your contact. So
Okay.
I'm gonna take your pass. Let's say you pull me way off the net. And I'm like, you know, instead of being like, oh,
This is the worst.
like, and making it look dramatic and like yard sailing myself, and I'm just gonna fix it, and then I'm gonna count on my hitter to kill it, or to have a high quality opportunity. And don't you feel a little bit better now that, you know, you're like, oh, okay.
It's not too bad.
I didn't get exposed.
Yeah.
You know, and especially for new players, that's important, because new players, or when you're new to anything, could be your first day on the job or an organization. Like, you want to prove yourself, but you also want to belong and you want to be accepted. And that's, you know, at any level. And so, yeah, we try not to expose the situation. We try not to expose each other. Volleyball is a game of exposure and mistakes. And it's a game of, if you play a 5-setter, it's 250 individual points. So really, is your one non-perfect contact gonna affect the outcome? You know, Roger Federer said this. I don't know if you guys caught his commencement speech. He was the speaker at the Dartmouth graduation. His soundbite's been floating all over the internet, but you know, he won over 80% of his matches in his career. and which is pretty insane when you
That
think
is
about
insane,
because he
yeah.
played a long
Yeah.
time. How many points did he win? What was the percentage of points?
Ooh.
So if you win over 80%, right? 80%
Yeah.
of your matches, what percentage of points did he win, individual points in his entire career?
I wouldn't know what the math is to
No.
that.
Just over 50.
Wow.
And volleyball's the same way.
Yeah.
You know, you're winning one, you're losing one. You're winning one, you're losing one. You're winning one, you're losing one. I mean, volleyball and tennis are very, very similar sports in that. And also, when you're winning, you have to continue to earn points to win. When you're losing, you can earn points to come back. You know, there's not a clock you can let run out. You can't possess the ball. You know, it's a rally-based sport. So that being said, you know, it's if I'm a little bit more relaxed playing around you because I know that you're going to fix maybe a mistake that I have and therefore not end the point for the other team. That's what we mean by not exposing. Hitters, same thing. If you go up and your set's not perfect, you know, let's not blast it into the bottom of the net and turn to your setter and go, hey, get that higher. Let's fix it. Let's find a way to rally extend. And then, you know, behind closed doors, not for public, you know, say, hey, can you get that ball?
Right.
You know, so this not exposure thing, because like I said, if you're losing and winning 1 out of every 2, like the focus should be on the main thing is how you're going to try to adapt and create the next point that you could win, because in volleyball you still have to win by 2.
Not
all the
hanging
sets.
on to every little moment that'll get you down.
You can't.
Right.
You would bury yourself
Sure.
very quickly in volleyball. If you're losing 1 out of every 2, holy moly, that could be a dark internal place if you're hanging on to every single point.
Shake it off, move on to the next one.
Yeah, it's like Michael Jordan. It's like he just put up a shot and he goes, hey, it either went in or it didn't, and I moved on.
I want to open up this question for the both of you. I recently interviewed Kim Eng, who is running AUSL, the Pro Softball League up in Rosemont, and they are traveling, kind of barnstorming the country, trying to build that program up. And I did a story on it for NBC Chicago, and someone who I will not name said, oh, well, this is never going to blow up unless you have a Caitlin Clark. This will never get big unless you have a big superstar.
Sure.
So, but for both of you who played the sport, love the sport, what would you say to that, knowing, like, do you need a Caitlin Clark, a superstar, to get the dollars and the eyes and the TV deals that come with it?
Well, it's one way of doing it, right? And I've said this multiple times.
And I've said this multiple times.
Is you know, Caitlin Clark is a walking economy, and that is really unique. I mean, Michael Jordan was a walking economy and a global icon for the NBA, and there have certainly been tips of the spear that have propelled the sport to new heights. And I would say to that, you know, when those people come along, there is a unique responsibility of everybody else in the room to make that sustainable. So whatever that person's bringing, whether it's they're selling out, whether it's they're crowds, or they're improving your merchandise, or you know whatever it is in those metrics, you have to use the opportunity that individual is providing to build the infrastructure around it. So when that person inevitably ages out, there may not be another, you know, Caitlin Clark coming up that just it's that kind of perfect storms it, you know, another Michael Jordan, you know, another Michael Jordan. But what you saw after that, like so the Michael Jordan era, you know, was really the advent of shoe deals and you know, they open up opportunities that people in the room weren't already thinking about. And so it's everybody's responsibility that when you get to be graced by the presence of these individuals and they offer new opportunities that maybe weren't with the sport before, which certainly Caitlin Clark has done. It's the responsibility of everybody else in the room to learn how to lead and build the league at the next level. So you know, it's a pathway. It's not the only way to have success. If that makes sense.
To piggyback off of that, I would say too, like you said earlier, women's bodies and men's bodies are differently. The way men consume and the way women consume are different. I think women do a really great job of being like, oh, we don't have enough seat at the being like, oh, we don't, or let's build you another chair. I think women innately we work really well together when we come together. And I think we're learning that just because the men's model works for the men, that doesn't mean that model has to work for us. And I think we're starting to see that there can be 2 different business models.
Obviously.
Or 10, yes.
It could be a bunch of different ways.
There can be a bunch, so we don't have to follow this one size fits all because we are not a one size fits all. when you have a global superstar, of course it helps. I mean, we'd be silly to say it doesn't. I think it's just finding out who your audience is, who's consuming it, and what do they want, and really asking yourself that question more than anything.
Yeah.
And there's new dollars. I mean, there's new dollars coming into sports in general. You know, sports ownership, it used to be rich people who wanted to own a sport for fun. Now, sports ownership is a multi-personnel investment, and there are these investment companies buying stakes in professional sports are being turned into profit generators, whereas back in the day, I mean, you owned the Mets because you liked baseball and you had a gajillion dollars, and so
And
you
it was
could
a tax write-off.
you could throw some money at it, and I mean, that's really how football and baseball got off the ground, was people who had money, they liked it as a hobby, and now it's an investment opportunity. And so you're seeing, that's why I think we're just in a new era, and looking forward, there's more people that want to buy in to a percentage of ownership, and there's more people that want to buy in to the women's sports leagues, and as a percentage and there's a lot more investors that see profit margins and see the opportunity to have a philanthropic and a profit coming together. You don't have to choose necessarily anymore, to where, oh, well, I'm just going to put money at this because it makes my company look good. Right. You can actually get some ROI, you can get some return on investment in your portfolios.
The WNBA, Sonia, I'm going to need you to fact check this again, because I front office sports just did it, but they are expanding to 3 teams, and I want to say the buy-in was $250 million for each franchise, which is a huge jump to what it was the last time.
Yeah, valuation is going up.
Yeah, so again, it's like, to your point, it's changing, it's growing.
The business model's changing. It's no longer a little boys club of guys that have money and they can just buy, and it's really turning into a professionally run investment opportunity. And that's why I think there's a unique chance to succeed, but only if we get it right. We have to get it right.
Yeah, Jenna, you're correct on that. Cleveland, Philadelphia, and shout out Detroit, $250 million expansion fee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. To talk about, the kind of expansion and growing, I'd love to kind of get your take on NIL. Obviously, NIL's been around since 2021, 2022.
Above the table NIL?
Yeah. Okay. Hush, hush. Let's get it.
To be clear, NCAA compliance. I never did it.
Correct. But as a coach, are you for it? Are you against it? Obviously, I've heard mixed reviews on it, but I'd love to get your take on how you think it's kind of maybe helped your girls.
Well, I'll tell you this. If I'm the front of a university and that university is selling all of my jerseys at the bookstore, and I can't even get a free sandwich from Subway, because that would be an extra benefit. This has been a long time coming.
For sure.
Sharing profits with athletes because you're using their name, image, and likeness to sell product. Not only to get, obviously it's the front door for your university. You look at whomever wins the NCAA March Madness tournament. You look at whoever wins the college football playoff applications to that school go way up. So obviously athletics is and continues to be the front door for your university at a time when there's the least amount of 18-year-olds in this country ever. And so sports really has a uniqueness of continuing to share the message about what universities stand for, what majors are big at that university. For example, our film school is top 10. But you would never know that unless you're like, oh yeah, DePaul in the Big East, and oh yeah, they're good at film too, right? So name, image, and likeness kind of on top of that, I think makes a lot of sense. We are in the infancy stages of it because right now it's allowed and it's a little bit out of control because you have third parties that can come in. For example, there's an NCAA rule that a booster cannot talk to a prospective student athlete, but it's allowed only if they're going to talk about the money that they're going to be provided to come to the school.
Little caveat there.
Which is really interesting. So I can't, if I'm a booster, I can't talk to you, but if I'm going to offer you money, NIL, we're going to talk NIL, then we can talk, right?
It always
Like,
seems backwards.
so that's what I'm talking about. It's like the cart is before the horse right now. But it had to, because the Band-Aid had to get ripped off at some point. This idea of amateurism in athletics with the amount of money that is in collegiate athletics right now was going to at some point have to change. So it's here. So really, it doesn't matter what I think, only that it's here and it's with us, and we have to make sure that we advise our young people and protect the sanctity of sport. And I worry a little bit more about betting, for example, and the pressure on our student athletes to perform when people are waging tens of thousands of dollars on their performances. I tend to worry a little bit more about that. I worry a lot about social media and what people are writing about our student athletes, because our student athletes and our young people are consumers of social media because they're building their brands there, and they're trying to build their, what I would call their small businesses there, and trying to, it's their version of LinkedIn, and it's really stuff that we're telling. But then when you're on there, you're also seeing that somebody is saying some really inappropriate things about you, and how do you do that and tune that out at 18 to 20 years old?
Personal and
I'm 41 and I have to stay out of chat rooms at 41 because I'm a little sensitive, and so it's I worry about the mental health, but NIL, I think NIL is awesome. I think the opportunity that women have, so like Olivia Dunn, for example, the gymnast, and what she's been able to do, and what a lot of our female, again, it's just access to rooms that we've never had access to before. And so I'm all for it. And again, the adults in the room need to be responsible, and we need to be responsible about what guardrails we're setting to protect them, not to restrict, but just to protect all of our student athletes, men and women, who are, in some of these spaces to be earning some money right now, which is life-changing money. Even the product that some of them have, they represent a company, they post on the socials, they get free product. I would have killed for that in college. I'm like, hey, what, pita pit? You want me to get all good? You're gonna give me free pitas for the year? Like, I will do whatever you want. You want me to wear the pita and stand on the sidewalk? Like, for a lot of the athletes, that's the majority of the deals is product trade.
But still, it helps. Coach, you're losing a lot of your decorated upperclassmen this year, like Jill Presley, Rachel Krasowski. How will you guys continue to evolve, and what do you think we can expect from the team this season?
Yeah, so we lost about 950 kills in the Big East Libero of the year, and that's significant.
Huge loss.
I think it's number one, just the level that group got the program. I talk about program building in phases, and when I got here in 2018, the program had found a little bit of an ebb. It was not flowing, it was ebbing a little bit, and the challenge was, could we get out of, I think we were 285th in the country and dead last in the Big East. And so phase one was really about, hey, could we, understand, get everyone realigned in, what we're trying to do. Can we get out of the basement of the league? Can we get out of the basement of where volleyball is in this country? Just because we feel here at DePaul, we have a lot of strengths. The university, the location, the league, there are a lot of positives. And so could we start to perform at a level that reflects those positives that we have? And the first 3 years, we did that. We climbed from dead last to second to last, which is not last. Important first step. To 7th to 5th. And so at that point in time, the 2020-21 class, the Jill, Rachel, Hannah, Ashley, Allie, they all came in COVID, and the task on them was, could we continue to compete in the middle third? So we were at the time 185th in the country and between 5th and 7th in the league. Could we stay there, number one? A lot of people want to climb before they prove you can at least hang. Could we stay there, and then by the end of their career, could we start to migrate up into the top third, which for me is top 75 in the country, top 4 in the league, and that group did that. and now, so that was phase 1, and then phase 2 was that group's 4 to 5 years, and now we're headed into phase 3, where that group came in, and in phase 2 really not only kept things stable, but started to really sharpen the axe a little bit and put a tip on our spear. And, we've been top 75 now 3 out of the past 4 seasons. We've been top 3 in the league 3 out of the past 4 seasons. And none of that has come easy. It has been hard every single day, and they continue to show up and reflect the blue grit that we take a lot of pride in here at DePaul. And so phase 3 now is, as that group allowed, what that group allowed me to do was to recruit some of our most talent that this program has ever seen. And you're going to see some of them this fall as new players. And we return our middle group, for example. We return one of our starting setters from last year. So we do return some key pieces. But you're really going to see kind of the next generation that really the expectation for them is, there's a couple open spots on that wall for some banners. And so, it's a unique position to be in. And what I was telling you guys earlier today is, we lost 950 kills. We lost the Big East Player of the Year, just phenomenal performances, and people that took responsibility from day one. We're counting on that continuing with this group. And so with this group this year, we are uniquely unburdened by expectations, and I think there's a big opportunity for us to overperform. Maybe what some of the outside world would write down on paper that they expect us to do. And I'm very excited to get this group going, because they're coming into the program where the expectation is top third of the league and top 75, and then where can they take that expectation and how can they grow it? We've lost in 3 semifinals of the Big East tournament. We have to find a way to get through that match, but you can't get through the semi if you're not even there. So we have to continue to show that no matter what we gain, what we lose, what good programs really do is they reload, they don't rebuild. And so that's what I'm looking for out of this group, is that they really understand that we are reloading, we are not rebuilding. We have to work and train every day with a purpose and an intent. That expectation is on them, like performance, not perfect performance, but that they really go for it day one. Because we don't want to go back down to 10th or 11th just because, quote, we lost people. And they're really good programs. I mean, the really good programs don't do that. They lose All-Americans, and then, people on their roster become the next All-Americans, They fill those shoes, and they make the program their own. And so I'm excited. The opportunities on our roster were really deep. The floor of our game is really high, and I don't even know where our high end's going to be. So there's a unique level of excitement and adventure and uncertainty, and I think that's cool.
That's the best place to be, right?
Yeah, it is.
Very exciting. Coach, it's been a pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you so much. Jenna, did you have fun?
I had so much fun.
I don't live your volleyball.
I don't want it to end, and now I want to go on peppers. So let's go down and
Hey, that's
pepper.
one thing I still can do at 41. I can still pepper and demo. So anytime you're welcome in our gym.
Yes, count me in.
Amazing. Well, Coach Zidek, thank you for taking the time. That's head volleyball coach Marie Zidek for DePaul, Jenna Duddleson. I'm Kacy and Jenna. We will see you next time on the Blue Demon Room podcast.